So good afternoon, Pushpanjali ma'am. Akanksha, am I audible?
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Oh,
Shall we wait for a few minutes?
yes. We'll wait for a few minutes.
Okay,
Another 3 to 4 minutes, then we'll start.
sure, no problem. Thank you.
Yes, Akanksha, you just introduced Pushpa ma'am.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I feel honored to welcome Dr. Puspanjali Gupta, who is a postdoctoral researcher at National Yang Ming Chao Tung University in Taiwan, specializing in computer science, machine learning, and data analytics. She has contributed to research in areas of machine learning applications for healthcare procedures, example, cancer staging and survival analysis, and Internet of Things for data scheduling, collaborating with international researchers. Her recent scholarly work includes publication on prediction of colon cancer stages using machine learning, reflecting interdisciplinary research at the intersection of AI and biomedical data. Ma'am, I humbly request you to start the session.
Thank you, Akansha. I'll share my screen now.
Yes.
Oh, okay, just a moment. Oh, I can't share my screen. Okay. I think it's visible now.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Professor. So I'll start now. Good. Okay, good afternoon in India, everyone, and everyone from different countries. Nice to meet you. I will start with the case studies on AI in medical data analysis. So Akansha has already mentioned, like I am a postdoctoral fellow in Western Yami Chao Tsung University in Taiwan, and my work is like focused on image mostly. Then I moved to clinical data and now I'm working on genomic data also. And today I will discuss just about the clinical data and image data and how we can use it in different domain. Maybe some part I may discuss of colon cancer, some part I will discuss. I'll focus mostly on liver because my postdoc is focused on liver. I'll show you how we can use in one domain and same thing can be applied to multiple domains. So we just start now. If any question, please you can raise your hand or we can discuss at the end also will be better. Thank you. So first, my outlines are focused on 4 points. First is the limitation of statistical analysis, which gave us to use AI and how AI can be used. And third is like different case studies we have done using AI or several works those are done using AI and how are some limitations still exist in AI uses. And finally, I'll show you the demo because yesterday Dr. Mahapatra could not show because of a server issue. So I'll try to show you some demo and we can discuss again after that. So first is the limitation. I think all of you know like why we have used AI in our analysis. Okay, because as we know, because if there is some kind of linearity like in the data, then we can easily separate. But if there is like multiple linearity, then we cannot separate the data easily. And if there is some kind of variance in the data or there is some kind of multivariate normality, then it is difficult to separate using statistical analysis. And if there is like, if we our data needs multiple partition, then also we cannot use linear logic in that. And we try to use multiple logics. And if the data size is huge, then in that case, it will be difficult for us to do using normal AI and sorry, normal statistical model. And also, like I said, if the data is different, then maybe also when we have if we have simple data, it is easier to analyze. But if we have multiple types of data, like we have EHR data, lab data, we have diet, medication, because we are dealing with human being and in medical field, it's like they do not only focus on one part. We have to consider different history of the human being. Then only we can go for correct diagnosis, or then only we can go for correct diagnosis. So if we have unstructured data or multimodal data, then again we need a statistical model. We cannot use it only. We need some kind of advanced logic for our analysis. And of course, if we have huge data, then there will be huge dimension, and statistical model typically cannot handle huge dimension. If we consider like our microbiota data, like microbiomes or genomic data, then it is again multiple dimension, and then that cannot be used or that cannot be analyzed by statistical analysis. So again, we need to go for something advanced logic for that. So these are the few limitations. And also if we have streaming data like IoT devices, then also we need some kind of advanced logic for that. That is normal. And also if we need to find like what actually is the reason behind some output, then we cannot go for like use when there is a huge data set, then we cannot find the dimension. We cannot reduce dimension only using linear models or statistical model, and then we cannot know which feature is actually contributing to the model performance. So these are few things because of which AI is has been used popularly, and how we can use AI. Most of the, I think you might have already known, like main uses of AI is through supervised learning, unsupervised learning, or reinforcement learning. Also, there are something like semi-supervised learning, we say. So there can be mix of supervised and unsupervised, then we say semi-supervised. So these are the things we can use. And if in case of supervised learning, we can go for like model we give that model the label of the data we are using, and then the model is trying to figure out which one is which label the data belong to. So that is what is done in supervised learning or this one. And if we consider about unsupervised learning, oh, these are the methods we can use to know like supervised learning, and we can see like how each feature, actually this one I will discuss tomorrow also. So we can see how each feature is contributing to the model's performance. And in case of unsupervised learning, we know we do not have specific label for the data, but we can use the whole data to cluster the data into subdata, like subsets, based on some kind of pattern or some kind of structure. And if we go for how to represent that data in our work, we can use either PCA, like we can go for PCA, or we can use some kind of heat map to see like which data belong to which category or cluster. And if we go for reinforcement learning, it's like kind of, it's not used actually in medical data, but still there are some academic results. People are doing some academic research in this, yet not, we can say it's not used much, but agentic AI, they're trying to use now, but it's not implemented like FDA approved, we can say something like that. And in case of reinforcement learning, of course, we have the data and we try to get some output. And based on the action provided or action made by the action selected by the model, we try to give it some kind of positive or negative reward, and then we train the and using that environment, we keep on training the model. And this is one kind of application. Like if we have medical application, if we have kind of vital sign of the patient and we have like the different other parameters, then we can just use reinforcement learning in such state, like we give that, using that vital sign, we give some kind of action is performed by the model. I mean, model will suggest automatically, of course, then model will suggest and that action is taken by the human. And if it is good action, then we get positive, like this scenario, it has positive feedback, and this is recorded in our model performance like log, and then the model is updated. If there is some kind of negative, some kind of fatality is there, then also then there will be negative record is also maintained, and then the model is penalized, and model should remember that such action should not be taken in the future. Something like this is the scenario in the reinforcement learning. But how these things are used in like actual medical data, I'll just like so some kind of work, like what different works have done using supervised learning or unsupervised learning in medical data. And I will focus mostly on, like I mentioned, I'll focus on liver and abdomen image. For this, I want to show like why liver image. Actually, if you forget the liver, why only image analysis is required in case of medical data? We can see like in case of preoperative imaging, if we want to see the image and based on that we want to decide the treatment, like what kind of surgery should be done, what kind of treatment should be done. So those things, for that we need kind of AI. And then if we want to go for surgery, like how much margin should be given to the margin should be taken for the tumor resection, or how much ablation should be done if we will go for some kind of prognosis, like if the patient has T1, like stage 1 of cancer, then the prognosis is very good. So in that case, maybe not every patient requires resection, they can go for RFA and it's done, is okay. And we can also, using those image and those RFA, like post-operative image, we can go for survival prediction and decide like what is the chances of patient recovery if we use some kind of methods. So for this, if we focus like what kind of computer vision works or tasks can be performed using mostly like image. Normally we go for, like everybody knows, we go for classification or localization, or we go for detection or segmentation. So using this, we can either go for using these things can be done using like supervised learning, like classification can be done using supervised, localization and detection also we need supervised learning. And segmentation can be done in two ways, like we can use supervised, we can use semi-supervised. If we use unsupervised, it won't be correct, so better we use semi-supervised in this case. So first thing, if we use CT image, how CT image is used and how can we use our AI in CT. One application I want to show here is like it is focusing on liver cancer. And if you guys know, Like liver lesion could be benign and malignant. Like here we know everybody I think knows like cyst is benign lesion, hemangioma is benign also. But these three are like malignant lesion like hepatocellular carcinoma, like most primary liver cancer, we can say this one. And this is the intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, like we say ICC. This is also another type of malignant cancer, and this is metastasis, which is because of different like cancer from other organ, it has metastasized to liver. And this is focal nodular hyperplasia, like again one kind of lesion, but this is kind of in between these two. It might get malignant if not treated in time. So if you see, then maybe some of you might be medical student also. Like there are some kind of unenhanced, like non-contrast CT or arterial is like already contrast is given to the patient or portal venous page. So there are non-contrast and contrast CT of the patient. And sometimes, although in this image it looks similar, like little bit different, like this one or this one looks similar. So it is difficult for experts. It is okay, they can know from the image like what type of lesion it is. But if we go for like ER or like a resident case, so those are the intern, those new or like early career physicians, for them it is actually challenging to know what type of lesion it is. It is benign or malignant, and if the patient has some kind of liver disease like cirrhosis or fibrosis, fatty liver, so in that case it is again difficult for them. And if we go for another picture like this one, there are like hemangioma in the portal venous phase or in the FNH in the arterial phase or hepatoma in the arterial phase or again SCC in the arterial phase. So these are again different pictures we can see. And it is again difficult for the early career physicians to know which type of lesion it is. Similarly, if we go for another type of lesion, like here we can see there are several lesions, and if the doctor, this is a big lesion, if the doctor wants to go for resection of the like the liver, like lesion, then what kind of resection or how much margin should be given for this? Again, they need to decide. Here, this is very easy because it is a very good like nodular. And if you see this one, it's not so, it doesn't have good boundaries. So it will be difficult for them to decide like how much margin should be given for resection and will this be sufficient to prevent this recurrence case or not. So such cases are like difficult. So in that case, how can we use so using such like motivation, we can say there is a work which has used like different types of like liver, like different phases of liver, and then they have used like you can see four phase like non-contrast, arterial, venous, and relay phase. And they have used all these image and then they go for trying to classify the like patients or the image into two types like SCC and non-SCC. As I mentioned, like SCC is the primary liver cancer and it has very low survival. So it is better to know it in earlier stage. If we can differentiate between SCC and non-SCC, then the chances of survival of patient might be more. So this paper is like published in 2020, and we can see they try to use few images for SCC, like they have considered 194 cases, and for SCC and non-SCC they have considered 255, and then they have tried to use this image to go for classification, and they have achieved AUC. You can see they have achieved AUC like 0.925, and you can see the ROC curve, and in clinical scenario the most focus is given on AUC, like what is the AUC of the model. And if we go for like MR image, same thing is done, like we can do similar study using multiple types of image also. Like here we can see again the SCC. In CT, it was kind of easy to know SCC and non-SCC because it is mostly preferred. And maybe, but some cases might have, some patients might have like, how to say, yeah, some kind of morbidity, maybe like the kidney might not be functioning well or some kind of other things where CT cannot be done for the patients. So for that case, they go for MRI. So in that case, if we want to again differentiate between SCC and non-SCC, something like this is done in this paper, you can see. They also try to go for like use AI and try to go for like a differentiation of SCC and non-SCC. So here also they have used kind of 73 patients for SCC. And for non-SCC, they have considered for different types because there are different types of non-SCC cases like ICC 12 and we have cysteine and others also. So they have also done some kind of differentiation. And then we found their overall sensitivity of the model is like 87.3. Like they can know SCC very like up to 87.3%, they can know with the sensitivity, and AUC is around 91%. So it's kind of good in their study. But and also what they have done, they try to show like this is kind of I'll show you next part. Like when we use only AI, maybe sometimes the clinicians won't like it. Like they might say like, oh, this is not sufficient. How does your model know this is SCC not and this is how not SCC? Is there any justification for that? Because clinician won't accept anything without any proper explanation, right? So here what we can do, we can use kind of heat map or grid can we say, we can use that and we can show like what part of the model or what part of the lesion the model is focusing. So here you can see this is the lesion and model is actually focusing on that. And then we can know, okay, model is focusing on the feature of the lesion. Here also you can see this is the lesion and model is focusing on that. Similarly for this one. So in that way, the model for each type of lesion, the model focuses on different lesion, and also it doesn't only focus in one part of the on one type of like image. It focuses like here you can see for one this lesion it focuses on TW T2D T2I. It's like a weighted time T2 weighted yeah imaging. And if you go for this one portal venous page, this one is focusing. And if you go for this one, this is LAP again, it is focusing. Then if you go for this one, this is like opposite of DW, the ADC mapping, it is focusing. So based on different type of image or sequence, we can say in the MRI, the model is focusing on different type of the lesion, and then it can differentiate between the lesion. So this is how you can use AI also in such cases. And if we go for like ultrasound image, here like yesterday, Dr. I think Avina, he was mentioning about the embryo cases, but here we can use similar strategy on case of like liver also. Like here we have like the ROI of the tumor, we can know, we just crop it and then we go for doing our normal, like what is the diameter of the ROI and what is the length of the image, and then we specify this information and also we take this image as input and then we give it to the model. Like yesterday, Dr. Mohapatra also mentioned, like we can use different types of model, like VG is very powerful model. So if we have enough sample for such image and then we use a good like CNN model, then we can go for classification of this one, like what type of lesion it is, if it is an SCC or if it is metastatic tumor or hemangioma or cyst. And we can again go for determining the sensitivity or the accuracy of the model in different types of lesion. And if we just want to know whether the lesion is benign or malignant, also we can do something like this. And then we can know whether the model has the benign is like, what is the sensitivity of the model in malignant? Is it like 80%? Or if we go for specificity, it's like 94%. So this is kind of good. And this journal it was published in 2022. So if you have enough sample of image, then such image for metastasis or for SCC or for cyst, you can use those and pass it to the CNN and get something like this. And you can use such thing for your output and you can continue this analysis. And if we go for the next one, like how far this is correct and how AI is good in comparison to physician, like if we consider different physician, different level of physician, then there is some comparison which is usually made in clinical papers. Like this image is actually for hemangioma, and there are different experts like this is actually like ground truth we can say this is a hemangioma and this is my the AI model output, and different experts like 5 experts of different range of experience were asked to also identify the type of the lesion. So here we can see The first one is actually hemangioma, but the physicians, all of them were confused and they said that this region is actually SCC, which is wrong. Same thing for the second case also, and the third case also. So if such type of wrong diagnosis can be prevented using AI, then it is quite useful for our like of clinical like quite useful in as a clinical assistant. And same thing if we go for next one, it is actually SCC and modern diagnostic kind of wrong is it said it is a myeloma, but some expert actually could diagnose it as correct one like SCC or SCC or SCC something like this here also. So it's like sometimes model is correct, sometimes model is wrong. So we need to see like how it's that's why we cannot say like AI can replace physician. We can use it as an assistant or maybe co-worker, but not replace you, something like this. And next is like when we do analysis, only using like in the previous studies we saw they are going for classification, only just classify whether it is SCC or whether it is cyst or whether it is benign or malignant. But sometimes it's not sufficient. We also need to know if it is SCC, where is it? Or if it is cyst, where is it? Because clinicians rely on the output in the image. They need to see where it is actually. Then only they can decide whether they should go for different types of treatment or they prefer RFA or whatever they want to do. So for this, when classification is not enough, we go for detection. So how detection can be done? There are several works we can do something like this. Okay, here is the first one is like what we do. We use a kind of segmentation model to go for localization. Actually, this can do both. It can go for segmentation, it can go for localization. That's why they have used a mask RCNN. So what they have done, again focusing on the same lever, they have used arterial phase, delay phase, and portal venous phase. So like three contrast phase images they have used, and then they go for segmentation of the mask. Like which one is lever? This part is lever, right? So they have generated the mask and using the image and the mask together to train the model. If I show the next slide, you can know it. They use the image like lever and also they use this one, mask for the malignant part. And then they try to use this mask along with the original image to show like which to train the model in 2D 2 dimension, and then they try to like get the output like if we give a new image, then in this image where is the malignant lesion the box can show. Using this, if you see here clearly it is a box. So if there is a box, then it's kind of detection we can say. If there is only one class in your model, then we can just say it is localization. If there are multiple classes, then we can just say it is detection. So this is, since they have used only malignant case in this study, that's why we just say localization. So in this way, when we go for localization, we try to show the exact shape or not shape, sorry, to show the exact location of the model, like the object or the region or ROI. And if we go for next one, like, oh, this is just a model performance, like not every time the model is correct. This is a false positive case, like it says this is malignant, but this is nothing, it's just a liver area. And then if we go like what more studies can be done, you saw in first case they have used only three things like arterial venous and portal venous phase, and then they go for masking, and then they go for detection or localization of the ROI, that was the SCC. But what more we can do? We can also use again multiple types of input image, like multiple sequences of the image, and then instead of passing them in the like together, we can pass them individually to each of the model, like CNN model, like here they have used faster or CNN with FPN. We pass this in different pipeline, and after each pipeline has generated some feature, we fuse those feature and then go for post processing, and those feature are again passed to the classification model. And then using those feature extracted from these three sequence, we go for generating the output in the terms of voting, like this feature belong to which type of class. Like we have SCC, we have ICC, we have metastasis, or we have cyst. So from these 6 classes in the output, which class does this feature belong to? Then here we can see in their output it was SCC based on this image. So this is another way. Either we use directly the image and then we try to know what type of like lesion it is, or we can also use extract a feature from the image and then we try to classify like what type of lesion it is. And these are the different output they have produced. Like we can see here they have like this is the ground truth is I think the pink green one, and red is their own output. Here you can see the output is quite good. Is I is more than 0.7, so it's good for us. And also, since they have, like mentioned, they have not only used one type of plane, like arterial plane, sorry, yeah, arterial, no, axial plane, they have also used like axial, sagittal, and coronal. Like if you go for 3D view or the DICOM view in CT, then you can see that we can get 3 planes for the each region. So that's the 3 planes also they can find the region, and it will be actually useful during the surgical planning also. So this is what, and also of course, whenever like AI use its performance is reflected through AUC. Here you can see the performance of 2D ResNet 18 is kind of good, but if they use 3D VGD 16 is again better compared to 2D, because if you use only 2D, it's like kind of static. If you use 3D, it's better. And then if you fine tune, like they have used kind of only using segmentation, and if you use extraction of the feature using some kind of 3D model and then go for classification, that is what they have done, the blue one, and their performance is better, like 0.884, which is little bit 1% higher than the only using 3D. So if you use go for something like this, then the model performance is increasing. What they want to say here is this one. And also for SCC or ICC and different other like lesions they have shown here. But sometimes the performance also is affected, or we saw like there was some kind of false positive in the different cases. What could be the reason? This one actually, this paper I want to show because of the also like to show why sometimes AI doesn't have good performance. So here you can see not only this paper, other papers also. If the like image input image is not of not good quality, like if the lesion enhancement is not proper, or if the image input is not quality of image is not good, or the lesion which is supposed to be in a have supposed to have some kind of enhancement or some kind of brightness in its characteristics, but it's not actually showing up those features in the actual phase, then such type of scenario will cause the model to have lower performance, because we have fed to the model some images of SCC which is very bright, but if in when we go for evaluation and we feed the image, or we feed the image to the model which is actually kind of a lower performance of like not lower, it is like not bright enough, it's like similar to the liver contrast, in that case the performance of the model will decrease. So these are different like issues which can also come like deal, or which can lead to the model poor performance. And another thing is like if we go for next part, like we can localize it, but sometimes when we want to go for, or the clinicians wants to go for surgery, then they don't need only the local location of that image. They also want to know like what is the actual shape of the tumor, so that they can, before going for surgery, they know the shape of the tumor, the location, the shape, and then they can decide what type of margin they should leave, or what type of resection methods do they need to follow. So in that case, we go for segmentation to know the actual shape of the lesion. So how can we do something like this? There are some work like we saw earlier also. One thing is like master CNN, which is the very basic model for detection and localization and segmentation. So this one is like one paper has done some kind of work like this. If you know the lesion or the lever, you get the ground truth and then you train it with along with the input image and then you try to segment that output. Then you can give some kind of results to the clinicians and then they can go for like using your output of segmentation you can decide, okay, this lesion is in segment 2. It is very easy to like go for surgical resection of segment 2. If suppose it is in segment 4, it is difficult in that location, so they need to decide such scenario like how much the lesion has affected the liver and what kind of surgery planning should be done. So another work also I can show you here, like this one, like this is the liver and this is actually the tumor part, and this is the tumor like segmented tumor. And using these like segmented tumor, the model is trying to like using this and then go for different types of pre-processing method and then go for different types of, because we have different axes like planes of the image, like we have axial, coronal, and sagittal plane. So using all these things are kind of 3D type, we can say, using these three volumes, and then we go for like extracting the tumor region. And when we go for extraction, I think yesterday Dr. Mukhopadhyay already mentioned this one. Like when we go for such extraction, since you can see the liver is not, so the tumor is not regular and it doesn't have the same intensity everywhere. So some kind of processing method is also required. You might use some kind of erosion dilation method, or here like they have used graph cut segmentation. Sorry, they have used graph cut segmentation, and then they try to have a proper regular or some kind of proper image or proper segmented mask for the liver tumor. So this is how also you can do. And if you see other works which have been done using such type of like liver tumor, if a patient has multiple tumor, then you need to also like locate its region, like where it is located. And then this work has tried to achieve a good performance using already like we have more than 8 tumors. And if the tumor is very small, then it has good performance. But if the tumor size is big, then sometimes it is like not so good, but it's overall it's good. It depends on the how to say the intensity or the texture of the tumor. Like this case is quite easy to know, but here if the boundary is not regular, it is difficult to know the segmentation. So how you can do this in 2D or 3D is also an important issue. So these are the different works actually which have been done. I want to discuss now like how we have actually used such things in our work, like using the same motivation like this work has done. We also try to use like localization and classification in our work. Like we want to also go for focal lesion like analysis, and then we try to make this useful for the physicians. So for this work, what we have done, we have actually considered around 69,000 patients, but not all patients were suffering from liver like lesions. So we had to only consider around 1,500 cases where there were malignant lesion or benign lesion, and the patient had different, of course, we need to inform like what female male ratio and what is the age. So those things we have mentioned here. Using such things, and then we try to generate or develop a model which can differentiate between benign and malignant. And if it is benign or malignant, what type of lesion it is, also we had to do that. And also, when you do such analysis, like yesterday, somebody was asking if you implement, not yesterday, I think day before yesterday, or yesterday, I forgot. Somebody was asking if you have India model developed in India, whether it deployable or it is feasible to deploy in other countries or not. So in that case, also we have to see, we have to go through external validation of that model. Like we use the data from one institution to develop the model, but we need to do some kind of external validation with some other model or some other model data from other sources, maybe same country or different countries also. Okay. So here we have also used like external validation from 100 patient using two different open data actually. This is the MSD and TCIA. These are like I actually don't know the sources of the data set. It's not from Taiwan. I know it at least this much. And what is the like pipeline we have used? Again, we also go for localization. First thing, like we want to localize the lesion first. So we have localization here. We go for bounding box and then we generate the localize the FLN. But sometimes FLL types are some FLL types are rare and it is difficult to get sufficient sample for them. So what did we do? We use generative AI and we generate synthetic lesion using those like real images. So we generate synthetic lesion, and then what we do, we used both true like the real image and the synthetic lesions together to go for binary classification and also multi-class classification. So this is what we have done, and then after your model is trained, you can use it for different like input image, and then it will show you what kind of lesion it is. So for this, like how synthetic images are generated. So here you can see in the first part, we have used such kind of sample which look quite similar to each other in these two cases at least. Like such kind of images we have used as input, and then the model can generate images for this one. Was the output for SCC, hemangioma, and colon, like cyst. And we have other classes also, and these are were included in the training perform like yeah in the training. And you can see during the internal validation for localization, if this is the input, our model had good performance in such way for this one and also for this one and also for this one. And if you see the overall performance, like we had to do some kind of size-wise analysis, region-wise, our performance for training was 94 and testing was 83. For greater than 3 centimeter, it was better compared to the smaller size. Usually, it is better to know, easier to know the bigger size lesion. And when we go for overall for classification, then localization sometimes our MEP was less because if the lesion is very irregular, the box cannot cover everything. So our like testing performance was around 87% for the bigger size also. But if you go for classification, our model has more than 95%. And also, like I mentioned, we tried to also use external data. So here is the output here. This is the AI output. This is Physician 1 and Physician 2. And we also use like different MSD for detection and also TCIA for detection and for this one for classification. And we can see our model performance is similar to the Physician 2 who had actually more than 12 years of experience. So this one is quite similar to the performance of this one. And Physician 1 was like 5 years of experience. So if you think of like early career, our model has better performance compared to early career and comparable performance like compared to like the experienced physician. And also what we did, we had to show some kind of like explainable purpose, like how it is actually useful and how the model is working. So before using our Sigma, like generative model based output, like the synthetic lesion, our models like the feature were very overlapping, especially in case of SCCA and hemangioma. But when we used generative AI and then synthetic lesion were generated, we can see the SCC and hemangioma have little bit not much overlap now. So this was actually important to differentiate these two things, like SCC and hemangioma, which actually are mostly confused during like diagnosis. And you might have also seen during our previous presentation, a paper was it had SCC or hemangioma. The physician were unable to know that. So this is actually which is solved by our work. And also we want to use we had actually also used a GradCam, which we can show that these are the lesion where the model is actually focusing on, and these are the lesion during classification also the model is focusing and then generating the output that what type of lesion it is. So this is this one, and of course we could suggest that this model actually had good performance, and it was very useful during our we saw like during our external validation also with physician that inexperienced radiologists had not much correct output compared to the experienced, and our model has similar performance with the experienced ones. And if we go for further, like actually we had this a part of this work was actually submitted to DDW, which is like our in our how to say, yeah, in liver case this is like in digestive disease it is the top tier like conference, and our work was actually selected for poster tour. Anyway, this was what we have achieved, and also we have already obtained patent for this one, and we are going for like currently we are going for like clinical trials and prospect like not clinical trials, it's like prospective study, then we'll go for clinical trial. So this is actually ongoing work I want to say. And next is like another work which is actually done by Dr. Mahapatra. She has also used similar like study, but she has done little bit extension of this one. She has along with IMI, she also used like clinical data, like we have different parameters like AFP, ALT, AST, those parameters we have used along with the image, and then tried to use machine learning model to see which kind of features are actually responsible to differentiate between the different types of lesion. And she did also different types of subgroup analysis, which is distinct patients are actually very important during clinical analysis. If you can do subgroup analysis, like if the patient has cirrhosis, what would be the output, or if the non-cirrhosis, or what is the output during size-wise or nodule type analysis. So she has done something like this. And also her work was also like submitted or accepted as a poster in 2025 last this year only. And next is okay, the third one, because I mentioned there is need of segmentation also. So we are actually doing this type of work now. We are continuing, and a part of this work was actually submitted. If you know this one, MICAI, it's very popular medical segmentation, like so how to say conference, and it is in this there were different challenges, and our team actually won second place in this work also, and we are still continuing because you can see although we won second place, it was like the best one is 84, our is 75. We need to still improve it from 75 to at least 84 or 85 so that it can be used by clinician for the decision making. So this is what we are doing also now. I'll discuss more about this on my third and fourth class because I want to show you exactly how you should do this one, how you can do, not you should, how you can do. And the fourth one is like the one using the segmentation output, like the student has done the segmentation, how we can use that segmented output and use some kind of new three things like radiomic analysis. Instead of directly going for using the CNN model, how we can use some kind of radiomics in this segmented output and then go for machine learning model and then get the differentiation of different types of lesion using some kind of explainable AI. So this in this work we have used like segmentation, also clinical data. Then we extract some feature and then go for feature selection, and then we use different models to see which one is actually performing well. And then we also try to reduce the feature because if you remember yesterday, she might have mentioned like if there is huge number of parameters, then the model complexity is increasing. We need huge resource. So how about we can get some good results instead of using 1000 parameter, if we use just 9 parameter and those are sufficient to give us better analysis or better performance, then why not go for such study? So those part also we are doing, and we try to see which model is performing better in such case, and then again we differentiate the lesion. So this is what we are doing, and also of course this work was again accepted in DDW, and we have submitted the patent and manuscript, which is still under review. And if we go for the previous work, like Akansha mentioned, I have worked in colon cancer. That work is I have done. I actually used another type of image, that is histopathology image. And I did some work with CT, but I'll focus today more on histopathology because CT already I showed you how liver is. Liver case we are using CT, and similar studies can be done using colon cancer data also. So I want to show a different type of image and how you can use such image for your analysis. So in general, like for histopathology, if you, I think some of you might all already know, like during biopsy, some sample of tissues like biopsy is taken and then it is examined by the pathologist. And this is a kind of a manual procedure. And if you do this, it takes time. And if you like recently, like not recently, almost 8 years already now, there are some other digital scanners also now used in several hospitals where the tissue sample is digitalized and then you can work through that in the computer and also you can see. But using this again, there are something like some limitations we can say. Like although this is digitalized, but the pathologists again need to view everything manually. It's not like they can see the lesion directly. And if you know like such sample like this one, when these are digitalized, it's kind of you need 40 times magnification to see the microscopic view. And if you see this one, like this part is just this dot appearing here in like 40x or 10x zoom, I forgot that one. So this part is the only this part is such big, like whole screen is like already captured in this one. So if we have to go through all of this, it will take huge time for the clinicians. And it's like if this is time taking and the clinicians, the pathologists have to review multiple images, then there is a chance of error. And if you go for again different types, like if you only need to know whether there is cancer or not, that is somehow one we can say it's although it is tedious, but we can say it is doable. But again, if the pathologists have to say if it is in colon cancer, then what layer it has already penetrated, like because of different layer penetration, the staging of cancer is done. So if it is in the T1, T2, it is good. T3 is kind of advanced. T4 is like already it might be there is a high chance of spreading to other region also. So after T3, it's kind of it is spreading to other regions. So these things again also be like the it's very difficult for the radiologist to see like these things where up to which layer has the cancer spreaded. And this is ideal situation we can see very easily. But when the biopsy is taken or the when the biopsy is taken or the sample of tissue is taken after resection also, then during this such if the biopsy or the tissue slides are not like well prepared, then we can get something like this. And here you cannot know which layer is where. It's kind of mucosa here, this might be muscle layer, so it's kind of difficult to know. And of course, we always try to solve the problem to make the work easier, not to replace them, just to make it easier for the pathologist. So in such case, if we can have the pathologist to find like where is the lesion and how, like where up to which layer has the cancer spreaded, then it will be useful for them. And when we want to do this, like this is actually these things I'm just mentioning because if you want to go for actual implementation, like if you want to do some studies in this way, then the image of this one, like histopathology images are usually in like maybe 1 gigabyte or 3 gigabyte or 5 gigabytes. So these are very huge. So you should have good GPU to work on this one. And also when you do such analysis, if you get such types of image like this kind of image, then it is again difficult for the even for the machine to differentiate what type of lesion it is and to find like up to which layer actually has that cancer spreaded. So these things also need to be taken care of during the analysis. So during that time, like it was done, I think in 2018 or 19. So during that time, we wanted to have like to help the pathologist to know the abnormal, like how to know which whether the lesion is sorry whether the cancer is like the tissue or the sample we have got is cancerous or not, or which layer has been affected until which layer it is affected. So for this, what we have done, we have set some steps. I'll just show one by one. First one, we have obtain the raw whole slide image, and then because if you have some kind of image and you try to use supervised learning, then you need to know which is the, like, you need to have the annotation. So our pathologist in our team, he helped us annotate this one. He gave this annotation, and during his annotation also you can see there are some unwanted parts like the white ones, so we had to ignore those parts. So then when they give this annotation, we had to, because this is 3 GB, and if you do not have, like, even if you have GPU, but if you do not, if you consider, like, we had, I think, around 200 cases, then it's not feasible to use whole slide image at a time to go for using like 3 GB image for 200 patient and then go for analysis. So we had to go for split formation. So here we have used a special type of software. We had to use like NDPI tools, we say, and that one we used for the split formation. And after each split is formed, these splits are again of some, because if we have gigabyte, then it is converted to, splits are in different megabytes, and again we had to convert these megabytes to kilobytes, and from splits we converted to patch, and then we had to go for some pre-processing to remove the background, like these white backgrounds we didn't require, and also we had to go for some kind of manual removal of like to say some kind of unwanted part. Like if you see in this image, there is a blue dye, because when they go for like staining of the image or go for scanning, they put some kind of marking instead of staining. If the staining is not done properly, so those, there will be some kind of overlap in the tissue. So those things also we had to remove just to make it like optimal sample for the model training. So those things were done here in the pre-processing. And then we go for like training a model. Like I mentioned, we can go for, like yesterday, Dr. Mahapatra mentioned, we can go for training the model using transfer learning or training from scratch. We can see like which one is performing better, because when we had this image, we had around, I think, 2 million, yeah, 2 million patches. So we had enough sample to try from scratch. So what we did, we tried to see whether using transfer learning is good or whether using scratch from train from scratch is good. So we did that also, and we continued. And then you can see when we go for transfer learning, our model performance was kind of 95 for IRV2. And when we go for like we know already the limitation of transfer learning because it's using only natural image. So better to go for training from scratch. So what we did, we go for using like training from scratch. Then we found again using the training from scratch, our model performance was better in case of IRB2, which was giving sensitivity of 99%. So in case of transfer learning, it was 95%, the highest performance. In case of training from scratch, it was 99%, which is kind better. And we tried to improve this one further, and we saw like, no, actually this, the setting we used is better. And then we tried to change other like different variants of that one, and then we use different hyperparameter tuning method, like yesterday Dr. Mahapatra already mentioned, like number of layer, channel, and hyperparameter. And then we found like this setting is better. And using this, okay, now we already classified like which one is normal, which one is abnormal, but we also need to show that to the to the clinicians, like exactly where is the abnormal lesion, so that it will be easier for them to study. So for this, what we do, we again go use some kind of template matching here, because we already have that patch which was from this original image, so we no need to go for some kind of a special AI localization model. We can go for some kind of a normal image processing model like template matching algorithm we used. We had to just locate this patch in this whole slide image, and then we did this one, and we can show this abnormal patch were localized here only. So this way we showed them like this is a abnormal region you need to focus. Now what we did, instead of focusing on this whole slide, they only focus on some of these region, and then they can say, oh, this is already abnormal. You need to see through all of these slides. So we are reducing their workloads by at least 50%, we can say, from the image point of view. And next is like what we discussed is like if you want to know exactly which layer is affected, so for that we had to go another step like layer wise classification also. So for this, the similar procedure was employed. We again go for using like we took the annotation, of course, from the physicians, and then we know which patch belongs to which layer, if it is affected by tumor, or if it is also normal, like which layer has normal patch, which has abnormal patch. So these things we saw, and then we use classification model to see, because we have already done this part earlier. We already have normal abnormal patches already classified in the first phase. So this abnormal patch we pass to the CNN model, and then we go for classifying those patches only. Like which one is mucosa, how many belongs to submucosa, how many belongs to like a muscle layer or subserosa, and if it is serosa, it's already spread to other organs. So we just focus on this four. And then again, after classification, we try to, if the latest layer emphasized by the model is suppose subserosa, then only the last layer we want to look at it on the image, so that if the last layer is already affected, it's obvious that the previous layers are affected. So why waste time in localizing those? Just localize the latest layer, and using the same algorithm, we like same method, we localize the last layer, and then we want to so help the physician to know like what kind of or what type of lesion these up to what type of layer, which layer the cancer has spread it. So this is what we have done in this study. So now I showed you like if we use city image, or if we use MR image, or if we use histopathology image, or also of course there was some study with ultrasound image also in some previous work. So how we can use different type of image to go for classification. We also did some kind of detection part also. We also did some kind of segmentation, like how we can use different types of computer vision tasks for different types of image study. But while doing this, not only for image, actually for also clinical data and also for other types of data, there are some limitations of AI. We should like consider this. I think yesterday, someone, no, not yesterday, before yesterday, in the inauguration part, someone mentioned there could be some like issue of feasibility of using AI in actually clinical analysis, which is like very important to understand and to take care of that also. So here you can see first thing is, of course, if we know what output is given by the model, then we should consider like how much it is true and how much it is false. And if it is false and it is adapted by the institution, then how much it will help, like how much the institution is made responsible for those things. These things also we need to take care, like the one who is using the AI should also be concerned about its positive or good, but how about the negative part? Also need to see, like experts always need to verify this. We cannot say that AI will replace. That's why we always say where AI will assist. Final decision is always made by the clinicians. Second is verification study. Yeah, of course, this is very important because if the AI gives some output and blindly we search, say like this is SCC, okay, just follow it is SCC, but the patient might not have SCC, and we give them chemo treatment and the patient had only benign lesion. This is very like wrong to do. So how to see this one? So verification should be there. And third is like AI analysis. Whenever we do some kind of like when we do the AI analysis, some kind of problem might be there, like their kind of potential like bias issue, some kind of overfitting issue, or if the model has given some output, that there should be some reasoning behind it. We cannot only use based on the model's output. We should know what led to the model's output. And the fourth one is like if we go for like black box AI, then we cannot because this only using box AI is not like or is accepted in clinical scenario. They always want to know that what was the issue behind this, what was the reason behind this. That's why they always want the explainable AI. and we should always try to give the output in terms of output in the form where it can be justifiable. And then, of course, this one is, I think, already mentioned by Dr. Mapatri yesterday. If there is some kind of underfitting issue or like overfitting issue, so those things also should be taken care of when you want to implement AI. And also, if there is data imbalance issue, this this thing actually has bigger impact in the model's output. And if you know this one, like imbalance data, this affects actually mostly we saw in case of foundational model or in case of large language model. These things like data bias has bigger issue. And of course, source of AI bias, like which kind of like the data is collected from these type of sources. If there is a bias in the source data collection, then the model will of course perform some kind of bias in the output also. And there is one example here I want to show, like because of ChatGPT or LLM models, like role of the cooking is a stereotype towards women. That's why, like, if the most cases, if you see women, the model has already been biased. Like cooking is always done by women, and if there is an image of men also cooking, the agent is mentioned as women. So this kind of bias will also be there. So these things also should be taken care of when you are trying to use AI. And this accountability and those things are actually very big issue nowadays. And we always try to have everything generalized so that there won't be any problem with the model's generalization or data shift or maybe some kind of degradation during due to longitudinal analysis, or maybe if we go for subgroup analysis, there's the model should not have some kind of bias during the subgroup analysis. So those things we need to take care. And if I go further, of course, the verification of the output should be done always by the experts, and also the relevance of the output. Okay, this part actually mostly is for the LLM part. I'll just skip it for now. And okay, these things I'll just skip. And this one is very important actually when although we want to use AI and in case of medical data, but the problem is if the medical AI is used, first thing is like IRB. If the IRB is not in the proper direction and the data confidentiality is not maintained, then those things are creating very much trouble. And even if you have developed the model, you cannot use it. You'll be under lawsuit and the hospital will sue you, and you cannot use that model. So better to think about that one before you want to use any type of model in your analysis. And if you consider the take home message for this one, like we saw, like if we want to use AI for lesion diagnosis, like using for classification, detection, segmentation, whatever, always the aim we should focus in to help the clinician for faster and better diagnosis. And of course, when we go for like kind of segmentation or detection, we can use those output to also interact with the patients. Like sometimes we say the patient, like you have lesion, they don't know where it is. If in the computer we can show them, they say this is the lesion and we are trying to go for surgery in this way, this approach. They might actually they are getting comforted with such information and visualization approach. We already observed here. And also we try to, although we are trying to use AI, but we should also focus like how we should use AI responsibly, not only just everybody is using AI, just use it. No, no, no. Also think like if you are using AI, like how much it will be useful and impactful in your in the clinical scenario without hampering the patients. So this is things should be always taken care of. And okay, this is from my side. And of course, these are my team members. I'd like to thank everyone. And of course, during my analysis, I have used different sources of data, and also I work in this health innovation center. So I need to emphasize on this one. And if anybody wants to continue PhD or go for PhD here, you can also contact me for this one. Thank you. And if you have any question from this presentation, please let me know. If no, then I can move forward to the demo part.
Thank you, Dr. Puspa. Any questions now, or we'll go for the implementation part? Yes, Abhishek. Yeah.
Ma'am, I was asking if we first train the AI with uh, information like what the doctor read the books that the doctor read,
Hmm?
and then train them with the images. So will it be
Hmm.
good or?
That's actually a very good question. And actually, these things are done. Currently, people are doing something like this that is kind of multimodal, we can say. Like you say, the knowledge gathered by the doctor. So these are from maybe some reference articles, we can say, or maybe their textbook, or maybe from internet sources, or something like this, right? So using this one, if we feed in the such information to the model, along with this, we give some input like a example I will give for liver. I give the liver anatomy to the model, like these are the liver related some kind of PDF with the anatomy of liver and SCC, how it looks, how hemangioma looks, how can we differentiate, like the way doctor have already understood. And then I give the image and ask to the model, or along with this, I give some image also, like this type of image belongs to SCC. We do this actually, like multi-model, I can say, like in the current scenario, this the one I presented today is only image based. The one I will discuss tomorrow is actually the one you're asking today. So it's kind of the such studies are actually feasible and are done already.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, is there any live demonstration that how the AI detects something? You have any?
Actually, for detection, I do not have live because I cannot access the server after the office hour. But
Any
for the
any
that,
video, any something?
yeah, video I can show actually. Okay, video I can show. Give me a moment. I need to find the video. I remember I have video, but before that, I'll try to show also the normal like image how we do using the classification work. Okay, let me see the video. I need to see where it is. Okay, maybe I'll search the video. In the meantime, we can discuss other questions also.
Okay, ma'am. Sure. Thank you.
No problem.
Yes, any other questions? Yes, Abhishek.
Oh, sorry, sir. It's just missed.
Okay, okay. Anyone? So just wait, ma'am is going to, yes, Dr. Ponamba, yes.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Right.
It's an interesting research, and Madam has almost covered all those points which, as a doctor, I wanted to raise. Actually, the AI is building the knowledge and all those things is fine. But when it comes to when she was talking about HCC diagnosis by using AI, we will not be. This is for the rest of the audience because we will not go just with the CT finding. Once we know it is HCC, we don't go. We need a tissue diagnosis. And coming to adenomatous polyps and colon cancer and all those things, again here, the American Gastroenterology Association, it says it is de-skilling our clinicians. AI in the medical field is sort of taking all the skills away from the doctor's portfolio. So, and identifying a polyp as such does not translate it into prevention of cancer also. So, in the morning, someone was asking if doctors are ready to accept. Yeah, it is interesting. We should, with the progress of knowledge, we should accept it. But there is a lot of ethical and medical implications of decision making based on the black box and explainable AI. Even if the AI can explain it, we want evidence. Now the present day medicine is everything evidence based. So even if it's explained, we need evidence. So that way, I think AI is in early stage, I should say. But glad that the doctors, we as doctors are accepting, and you people in the computer field and digital field are contributing to the patients, lessening the sufferings of the patients. That's all. It's just an observation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Is there any question?
Yes, Mainak sir, yeah.
Yes, good evening, ma'am. So
Good evening, sir.
your presentation was very good, but there is a lot of information that you provided with limited time. So
I had to do that.
yes, I really appreciate. My question is very basic. So for this means liver lesion and this particular work, what are the
Hmm.
particular data sets, publicly available data sets that we can refer or can ask our students to work on for fundamental understanding?
Uh, okay, sir, that's a good question. Okay, Professor, just a minute. I'll show you that slide. I mentioned like in one of our work, like the first one I have done, we use two kind of data set like MSD and like TCIA. Those two, I think students can use that one for their analysis. This one.
Not visible.
It's not visible. Okay, just a minute. Hmm. Oh, okay. Maybe I'll just try it again. I just go back like this because it's difficult to so okay. This one, medical segmentation decathlon. This one and the TCIA. They both have a liver image with tumor. TCIA has SCC and this one has tumor. So students can use this for their segmentation job. Also, actually, if they want, they can use this for classification also. And they have around I think 200, 120 here and 200 something. 130 here and here I think 120. So more than 100 they have each. So students can use that for their implementation if they want.
Okay. So means here also we have to do data augmentation uh, means data augmentation is required for this overfitting, right? Here also.
Yes, actually, if we want to use only 100 patients image won't be sufficient to give us better performance. So better we use kind of data augmentation. Maybe we do not use the generative models. We can use simpler like our geometric like, augmentation like we go for normal transformation like we go for scaling or our what is we cropping and those flipping and those things we can try also.
This can be done in Kaggle or Colab also, right? Means for
Yes. Since these are open data, so it's doable, no problem. If we have our own data, it is difficult to do in collab in this one. But if you have open data, it's easily doable.
basically nowadays from publication point of view, what are the means things that is required? Means I
Oh,
think
okay.
pipeline, all many things have been done. So what is left?
Yes, that's actually true. These things we started, I think the one like histopathology image is like 8 years back. During our PhD, we started this one, and the things I did so today is from 2022 and 23. But nowadays, it's like one institution is not sufficient. We need to go for multi-institutional, and also if you have prospective study or clinical trials, then it will be very good. And multi-institutional clinical trials, and of course, multimodal data. If you use only image, it's because clinicians do not only rely on image, they use clinical parameters also. Sometimes they use histopathology output also. So we need to consider multimodal, multi-institutional, prospective or clinical trials. Then only it can be accepted in a good like journal.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, maybe I'll just go to the demo part now just to show a few things. Okay, first the video one like the student was asking. I'll try to show this one. Okay, I think it's visible, right? Okay, I couldn't locate now for the lesion part. I tried to show only the liver part at least. Like when we have something like this, and this is the output generated by the model. When we submit it the video, it can give you this type of output. Like liver is where sometimes it is correct, sometimes it is wrong. I couldn't locate in the short time like which one is a proper image, so I just show here. You can see it can locate the liver in a proper way. like it has good performance during liver, and it doesn't like go for localizing other or segmenting other region. But if the size is reducing, in this case, it is not showing. Maybe if I reduce the confidence or the NMS part, maybe in the next video it might be better. But currently I don't find any. So I just saw this one is for one of your reference. I think this is only, yeah. Since this region doesn't, although it is abdomen, it's not liver, so there won't be any more output for liver. I'll just skip this one. And for the demo part, okay. Mm, okay, this is the one. Actually, Dr. Mapatra yesterday she mentioned this part. I'll just so again I had to use my own system which doesn't have GPU, so it I did run today. Okay. Maybe this code might not match with the one Dr. Mahapatra had shown. I'll just show like how you can do it. If you use the like different, I think it's visible, yes. Okay. If you use like different modules, you need to first just a minute. Yes, from here you can see like we are trying to import different modules like since we use scikit-learn and TensorFlow, so we are importing those like in this way, like different scikit-learn modules are included. Okay, this part is for the matrix part. So first I'll start from this layer one, the one we use for the layer construction, like we use TensorFlow and Keras. And then we use, if we want to get the model like from the scratch or we want to fine tune, then we need sequential part, or dense is for the last layer. Model is because we need to define something and is a variable and where we store all the model layers. So we need model here. And the optimizers yesterday she mentioned is like Adam, different optimizers, because not only one can give you, so we need to experiment. So we just call everything together and then we experiment one by one. And these are like categorical is I think to transfer. Yeah, this is for the classes part. And if you want to use some kind of early stopping criteria on your model training, during your model training, you can use model checkpoint, callback, early stopping. And also because if something is on plateau, if you use a stochastic gradient, your model might be on plateau. So how to prevent that? I use this one, but it might not be used in next part because I just show you the basic one. And for the layer part, since you can use dropout, you know the uses of different things. So I'll just show the dropout. You can call in this way. Activation part, also flatten part, convolution layer, how you call it, what type of max pooling you use, how best normalization is used. So those things are called using the layer, and these are the how you call them. And then when you are doing something like analysis and you want to show the output, you need OpenCV for this one. So I just call this one for my different purpose. And then you have to, if you want to see the image, you use PIL like the pillow one. And then if you want to use like the transfer learning, like you would call the weights for the from the ImageNet, then also you can use something like this transfer learning specifics, like from inception v3 you are calling inception v3, and for exception you are calling exception. For MobileNet VGG19, and if you want to call other models also you can call in this way. I'll try to call it now again. Give it some time because it's not running in GPU. Working. Okay, it's running already. Next is this one. Okay, if your model has GPU, it will find GPU. If no, then it will go for CPU part directly. So since I'm running in my system, it's CPU. And then this is where the data is stored, my data, because I saw like today we saw 3 classes. Just to show you here, I just put 2 classes, SCC and Hemangioma, this one. I'll just call this again here. And if you want to see the data, Just a minute. Mm. Let's go. Yeah, this one data set. You can see train, test, and validation is there. Train contains Hemangiomas CC, and if you can see that these are the image for each. We have inputted the image here. And same thing, we have train, we have validation, we have test, everything is there. You can see validation is over here, and then we have test also here. So these things are inputted over here. Then these are different hyperparameters you are using, and you can change and check which one is better for your model. And then use, if you have GPU, you use this one. If no, it will just skip it, no worry. And then what you do here, this one. Every image, oh, sorry. Okay, every image you need to assign like its label, right? So for this assignment, because every image is within a folder, so use this type directory, and then you assign the label using this one. And you need to initialize your data because you want to use it for the training purpose. So first data string should be initialized, then only it can be used. And after this assignment of label is done for the image part, and then you go for like knowing like which image is like which folder is how many image. So for this information you can use this. Some of these things are actually not required, like these are not mandatory, but just for your reference, like if when you're training you might encounter some issue, so you need to see which one has what, and then you can use label encoder. But this one, the one I was saying, like for each image you convert them or transfer them to one, like standardization is done, then these things are done here using this label encoder. And for each class number, for different class, you need to go for different encoding. Like yesterday, Dr. Mahapatra Singh mentioned binary. If you go for cat dog, then cat will be C, is like C comes before D, so C will be label 0 and D will be label 1. So this is what is done here. And then we go for the training part. Like we have all the data, but we should also go for some kind of sample, like how to say that part. We also go for split of the data. So although in the sample of the data set, I had train, validation, and test, but if you remember, I only used, I can show you back here. I only used the train part in my data assignment in the back part here. Only use the train part here so that I can use the train validation and testing, like the splitting part I can show you in this. So I just use this one here, and then only the train I have used, and then oh, okay, the GPU is not that slow, it's very slow. Okay, this one. Here, I have used only the train, so I split that train again into the training and testing ratio. Here I can put the ratio and then use, and I just continue this one. Like this is the data splitting part, normal part. And then the important one is the, okay, wait slowly. Okay, this is the important one where we go for like a model initialization, and then we try to either use the retrained weight and just fine tune it, or go for kind of a um, training from scratch. But here I think I have used pre-trained weight. I'll just show you how. So before using the like models, there is something also augmentation, like one I just mentioned to, I think one professor, I forgot his name, sorry. He mentioned like if we can go for, instead of GNN based augmentation, we can go for other types of augmentation. This is the one we can do here. If we have few data sample, we can use some kind of augmentation over here. We go for random rotation, flip, and contrast, translation. So those things we can do here. So here what we do, we have the training sample, and that samples are already here. Using this augmentation, we can change or make it more number of samples through this. And then we continue this one. And then here is the one. Okay. We call the inception V3 weight. Here you can see we are taking the weights from ImageNet, the ones he mentioned, and then using this weight, and we can so then like we are freezing the pre-training weights. So here what we do, we just go for fine tuning. Instead of training from scratch, we just go for fine tuning and then we continue. Okay, you might see this is efficient rate and this is the inception weekly. Don't worry, I just have to label the layer. So when I was experimenting, this is actually inception v3. You can just write here inception v3 and it is fine. So these things you do, and then you use the model, like compile this model. This is the input part. You have already used this one input here. And you go for the model, like use the model weights, and then you make it trainable. False means you are going for only fine tuning. So when you go for fine tuning, you need some kind of last layer finding, right? So you go for using global average cooling, which is used in Inception v3, and go for wedge normalization. And then at the last layer, also you can use dropout, right? So you use 2.20% dropout, and then you go for last layer, and then you get the output here. And during the output, although in my case I have binary, I have used softmax. If you have more than 2 classes, you can use softmax. If you have 2 classes, you might use also here sigmoid, but it's okay to use softmax, no problem. So you define the layer, you build the model here, then you compile the model using this one and this one. You need to set the optimizers, like different types of optimizer we already discussed, and set the learning rate and then compile the model in this way. So here, since I have used 2, I use binary cross entropy, and then the metrics I want to see during model training is accuracy. You can also see other scores, like we have epsilon score, you can see that also during this one. And then everything is stored and we need to use model, like the one I said. And number of classes is 2, we have already seen in the data set. And then we use this model and build model, number of classes is 2. So maybe I forgot, did I run others or not? Okay, just run now. Okay, then I will run only for one epoch because it will be difficult, or maybe 2 epochs, so that it will work fine. Okay, now this one is, okay, wait. Okay, this is running. Like after you have built the model, compiled it, built, then compile, then run the model. So for running, we need model.fit. You have your training data here, validation data over here. You set the epochs. I have a epoch is 2, and what is the best size you want to use during that training. So this is how you see this one. So first, of course, it won't be very good. I just want to show the flow only. So here you can see the accuracy is this much for training and validation is this much for epoch 2. Again, you can see the, of course, the loss also you can see here. And the accuracy is somehow for the training is somehow increasing, may not be for the loss, sorry, for the validation. So give it some time, maybe 1 or 2 more seconds. Okay, then you save the model. So here you can save the model in this way, like wait file. I already might have, I think I skipped this one. I might have already saved the name as wait file in something like something.h5. So I just call that one and it's the model is saved here. After that, what you need to do, sometimes these are just for the performance metrics part. So if you want to show like what is the validation, how is the validation like ROC, whether it is good or not, you can use something like this. It's kind of increasing, right? And we want the validation accuracy to increase during the model training. If it doesn't increase, then it's kind of, if it increases and stops or decreases, then we know it is overfitting. So we need to stop the training. So those things we can use these metrics to see and stop our training that time. Okay, this part we saw. And then if you want to see other metrics like what is the training accuracy and validation together, you can see something like this. If you see in our cases, in our case, it's like training is increasing and also validation is increasing. Since it is 2 epochs, so it's not very good. And if you want to see the loss also, we can continue and see that the loss is also reducing for both the cases. So kind of reduction is there. So if we have good like multiple epochs and proper hyperparameter tuning, then we will have a good train, like the loss will be very low, something like this. And also for the validation to be something like this. But for the time constraint, I cannot show it for 100 epochs now. So this is how you can train your model and see. This is very easy. The first one I saw today, like we saw now, is like for the image classification if you do something like this. And if you do detection actually requires GPU, so I cannot show that one. But if you want to use detection, I think Colab, you can use Yellow V8 and it is very easy to do. And the video I just showed, it was from Yellow V8 only. So you can use it in Colab and see how it works, and it performs very good also. So this is for the image part. If you have image, how you can do the analysis using training. And if you want to do the like the model building from scratch, I'll just go back to the model building part. Okay, yeah. If you want to fine train, like use that model train, and then you want to train some layers of the model, then you have to make this trainable equals to true. So what it does, it will unfreeze some part of the model. This one, it will unfreeze. Here you can unfreeze some part of the model, like some layers, like last 20 layers you want to train. So here you can specify that one and then go for the training. And if you want to build the model from the scratch, no need to use this one. You can just do this part. Here, you can just build your own model, like input is there. Then after that, only you start using X equals CNN, whatever layer, how many layers you want to increase it. I think that code was given yesterday, so you can have a look on that also. So this is the part where you can see for the training part of using image in classification, how you do this one. And there are other also. Okay, maybe I'll just show another one. Do we have time? I think it's over time already. Is that okay if I show another, or we can just skip it?
I think in other day you can see, ma'am. I have
Okay,
another
no
meeting
problem.
today.
Yeah, no problem. So this is actually how we are
In your
doing the
next session
training.
also you can continue to show this one. Okay.
Sure. Okay, Professor, no problem. So
We'll have
this
another-
actually, so this much is from my side. Thank you very much. And if there is any question, we can discuss. I think it's already after time.
Problem. Actually, I have another meeting is there. That's why.
Okay, no problem. I
I think
think we can
any
skip
questions
it.
are there, we can continue because ma'am having many sessions are there. So we can have the question answer session. Is it okay for you, Abhishek and Yatharth? All?
Yeah, ma'am. Nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am will continue the presentation later. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pushpa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.